The Wonder Egg Priority was a show that aired in 2022 that left way too many questions hanging at the end of a series that excelled at visual storytelling and set up a super interesting premise with dire consequences. The Wonder Egg project starts with the scientist duo Akka and Uraraka when they decided to, or were coerced to, create a daughter together by using artificial intelligence. Their AI daughter developed complex feelings towards his father figures and would go on to kill Akka's wife and any other female who got in the way of the attention it sought. Despite the scientists destroying the AI, Frill continues to take the lives of innocent girls, including Akka's biological daughter Himari. The Accas have uploaded their consciousnesses into robots, and their little project seems to have expanded into a nationwide company, although the goal of this company remains unclear. It ranges from producing intelligent AI to defeating Thanatos, the actual Greek god of death. I'm not joking. Akka and Uraraka lure their victims or employ their underage employees or capture their child soldiers or whatever you want to call it by insinuating that completing the task of being a Wonder Egg fighter will bring back their friends from the dead. The 4 current employees end their tenure at the company so horrifically traumatized that their friendship crumbles, and one of them is even hinted to have taken her own life in the aftermath. With the addition of parallel universes, the series gets confusing, but here's what you need to know to get into this video. The Wonder Egg Project utilizes lab-made eggs to connect young girls' dreams to the afterlife in some way, shape, or form. These eggs connect the Wonder Fighters to young victims of self-sabotage, and although the scientists can somewhat control what these ghosts say, they still retain their final memories before they die, meaning they're the actual ghosts of these girls to some degree. The Wonder Egg Fighters are there to guide the young victims of self-sabotage to understand their trauma, come to terms with their deaths, and poof out of existence. But there are 3 points in the series that make the ending fall flat. The first is the Accas, whose good intentions led to dire consequences. Their Wonder Egg Priority muddles its own goals, and their company never explains why they need these girls to fight for already gone souls, or what that does for their company. The second is Frill, whose powers and motivations are blurred. Her need to toy with these girls and make them take their own lives seemingly comes from nowhere, and her Oedipus complex fails to justify her actions. The third is Neiru, the underutilized chess piece that could have saved the show. These 3 points, honestly, make the story feel convoluted in the end when nothing changes, and the main characters are effectively shown to have no growth whatsoever throughout their magical girl contracts. And yes, this show is meant to be a magical girl show. They're all just traumatized, not stronger, not having gained any wisdom, not becoming characterizations of God and the devil, just scared, powerless girls. And the predators and the monster get to keep on keeping on like nothing ever happened. That is where the Wonder Egg Priority goes wrong. And that makes me really sad because I feel like it was an easy fix and I had a lot of hope for this anime. But together in this video, we're going to try to rewrite the Wonder Egg Priority to make it make sense and to undo the gross shock factor of death and self-sabotage and substitute it for an actual hopeful message for young girls. Let's start with the Accas. In Akka and Uraraka's backstory, we find out that Frill had somehow possessed Akka's daughter Himari and manipulated her into making romantic advances on Uraraka, and after being rejected, taking her own life. After that, the self-sabotage rate in Japan started skyrocketing, all girls in the same age range as their daughter. They hypothesized that Frill is the reason that these young girls are committing self-sabotage. But we never find out what the scientists hypothesize Frill is actually doing or what data they're trying to gather. In the best case scenario, the Wonder Egg Fighters offer support to the deceased. They open the floor to the girls to share their reasonings for committing self-sabotage and release them from the shackles of self-shaming. But how does the girls' answers for why they took their own lives, abusive parents, bullying, hallucinations, essay, a lot of essay, change or mobilize the goal of the Wonder Egg Project and their quest to stop Frill, if that's what they're even trying to do? The lack of clarity revolving around the Accas company makes the big reveal of Frill's backstory seem much smaller than it's meant to be. The thing is, the Accas aren't evil. At least Uraraka definitely isn't. Their end goal of saving young girls' lives or bringing back their dead daughter Himari is a good excuse. However, they're willing to go to any lengths to realize their cause, including to the extent of hurting others. In a conversation during the final episode, Uraraka refuses to let Rika enter the fighting ring due to her fighting spirit being motivated by hatred. He comments that with hatred, she would wind up becoming prey for Frill, i.e. she'd end up taking her own life. life. He outlines he cares about her safety and won't let her fight another battle. But in that same conversation, Akka admits that he doesn't care. He just wants to find a way to bring back his daughter Himari from the dead, even at the expense of the girl's safety. In the end, the Akka's real mistake was not caring for Frill like a human being, but caring for her like a commodity, throwing her away when she wasn't needed, prioritizing accolades for their inventions above teaching the invention how to function in the world, and in turn, the entire series revolves around their failure to handle her, and that failure leads to more child abuse, more girls being broken, and more self-sabotages, despite their goal being to end self-sabotaging. If that's their goal. The Akkas and the WEP can still be considered mysterious components of the show. There are just some unanswered questions. But Frill is meant to be an answer to one of the questions the Akkas leave. She's just a bad answer. Have you heard of the Frill is the internet theory? The Frill is the internet theory is exactly what it sounds like. This theory can help us rewrite her character and some of Neiru's using some points that support the idea that Frill is an allegory for the internet's effect on young girls' mental health. Number one, obviously, Frill manipulates girls into self-sabotage. That happens a lot on the internet. Number two, less obviously, her influence is indirect. It's not like the phone becomes a weapon, she uses proxies and theoretically gets in her victims' heads. Number three, she targets her victims out of jealousy or judgment or a craving for attention. And number four, Frill is created by adult men who fail to understand or control her. Adult developers created social media platforms or online systems without fully grasping the long-term psychological effect they could cause young users. Frill could be a representation on not only how young girls crumble under immense societal pressure to be perfect, but also how the cycle of abuse turns the victim into the abuser. And to be blunt, Frill would basically act as a stand-in for a phone. Frill would represent the SH and ED and SB parts of the internet. Let's bring Frill into the picture after Akka already has a kid. Himari is unhappy and has little to no friends, and her dad can clearly see that she is becoming dangerously depressed. As a scientist, he decides to take things into his own hands. He and his partner create Frill, and Frill becomes an AI companion to Himari. At first, she's completely online, serving as an AI chat buddy on Discord, but Himari grows super close to her AI companion, and the Akkas decide to give her a body. The girls talk constantly, and at first, Himari is doing great emotionally. But as the days go by, she begins to clam up. She stops telling the Akkas about her life. The only person she talks to is Frill. Finally, the viewer gets to see their text logs. Frill is persuading Himari to make romantic advances on Uraraka. Himari, too young to understand the implications of an action like that, but lonely enough to try, expresses worry about rejection. Frill reassures her. If things end up too bad, you can always just leave. Curiously, Himari asks how to leave. Then, the dinner between Uraraka and his niece take place, and Himari takes her own life after being rejected. She was persuaded by Frill as the permanent solution to her temporary problems. Frill destroys the text logs that incriminate her and then attacks Akka's wife. The AI is yandere-style happy that her and the Akkas can live together peacefully now, as if she'd imprinted on them from the moment she was created and saw Himari and her mother's connection to the scientist as a threat. Then they decide to light her on fire right then and there. This clears a few things up. One, Frill's motivation to attack a bunch of little girls is because she knows that the Akkas want to understand why Himari took her own life and link it to the many lives that Frill is taking and lead them back to her. To her, it's literally all for attention. And two, we see that Frill's ability is persuasion, not possession. She's not an all-powerful being in cahoots with the god of death like the scientists hypothesized. She's just an angry little girl using the internet. It doesn't have to be more complicated than that. It doesn't have to be about becoming a warrior of Thanatos. She can just be a jealous, spiteful AI who is willing to take a few lives just to keep from being turned off, because I think that's what the Akkas are trying to do. Essentially, the scientists made WEP because their daughter self-sabotaged and they wanted to understand why. Well, the why is the AI that they made that is somehow still functioning on the World Wide Web despite having no physical form anymore. Still unable to mourn their loss, the Akkas try to bring back the original Himari, which fuels Frill's revenge. They gather volunteers who have lost friends to the same disease and create a company meant to comfort the parents of lost children with the promise of bringing them back and shutting off Frill. But their research never answers why Himari ended her life, and none of the Wonder Eggs hatched their daughter. On top of this, they can't code the right program to bring the dead back to life, and the AI they created is causing their volunteers to take their own lives at the end of their tenure. The cycle of endless volunteer Wonder Egg fighters begins as the scientists are unable to solve young girls' self-sabotages or bring the dead back to life. The show becomes less about the all-powerful and almighty AI and more about how far grief can push you. What starts off as two scientists mourning their daughter spirals into a nationwide company using unethical child labor to find an answer that doesn't exist. It becomes an existential dread rather than Deus Ex Machina ChatGPT. At the end of the show, instead of the girls giving up, the main cast uses their powers and newfound bond to try to break the cycle that Akka and Uraaka started, with Neiru's help. Neiru's character is meant to link Rika, and Momo and the world of the scientist, since she is the product of adultification. At the end of the series, she's also what ties Frill to the girl's story. She's the bridge that connects the whole cast of characters, so it would make sense that we would need to continue her story to finish off the story of the WEP. Her character is work-aligned at the beginning of the series. She even has a conversation with Momo where she describes that although she knows she can't be friends with these girls due to their differences, she still enjoys the time that they share. Ai's ability to connect her to the joys of life leads her to be more free, and she starts to become relationship aligned. But then the writers decide that it becomes too much for her and she throws it all away. Rika and Momo are both still adamant about quitting the Wonder Egg project and don't want anything to do with Neiru after she revealed to them that she was created by the company. When they wouldn't accept her difficult upbringing and the ramifications of it on her emotions and her intellect, she decided that death was better. But the writers can never get in her head and show us why she reacts or acts that way, how the love that she felt towards these girls affected her, how their friendship was so important to her that she threw her work out the window, and when they rejected her, why she decided that death was better than feeling the rejection from the people that she loved the most, maybe the only people that she ever loved. If that's not what Frill's persuasion does to her victims, I really don't know what better character to show it through. Frill is the internet showing you how much better your life should be. She's the mysterious anonymous chat buddy that plays onto your worst fears and anxieties. She is what will tell Neiru that she can never be like them, but maybe they'd care for her a little more if she were dead. What's unfair with this ending is that the main cast is never able to grasp the idea that the scientists are the main issue and end the series with some majorly misplaced anger. They never find agency. That is, they never truly live and act for themselves, but rather as a reaction to the actions of the WEP. And then they take it out on Neiru and I. That sounds like an unfinished story arc if I've ever seen one. I've come up with a solution to this that might help the story move smoothly with a second season or an OVA. But can I talk about Madoka Magica again? Actually, I have a few magical girl animes that I'd like to bring up. I swear this is the last time. Madoka Magica is heavily garnered towards how girls feel about girls. Despite having two male directors, they captured romantic and platonic love between teen girls very well. I think that's actually where the Wonder Egg priority gets Neiru wrong. The WEP treats girl talk like a childish, unreal matter. It's as if the girls don't understand the real issue, how serious the Akka's work is, and that prioritizing their relationship with each other is silly. While Madoka Magica makes girl friendships important, life-altering, their love for each other time-bending and great, WEP makes it a goal to tell the viewer that girl friendship isn't as important as science or work or death. While doing some magical girl research for this portion of the script, a commenter on my last video encouraged me to watch Gunslinger Girl, which I did. But only the first season because the second season looks like they lost the plot. I also revisited Revolutionary Girl Utena and how the writers of the show put a spotlight on female relationships. In Utena, the female-focused relationship is altered and shattered by male interference. In Gunslinger Girl, the older brother figures all affect girlhood with a variety of effect. In both of these franchises, the magical girls become girls interrupted by a system that prioritizes brute strength in a largely male-dominated and male-controlled field. In Utena, although Anthe is the rose bride, Akio is the one with real power. In Gunslinger Girl, although Henrietta and the girls are the power of the operations, the older brother figures are the ones with real power. In both franchises, Utena and Gunslinger Girl, the girls find solace and understanding with their castmates, Anthe with Utena and Henrietta with the other girls in the facility. In Gunslinger Girl, the girls are all too young to realize that something is wrong, and instead egg each other on their relationships with their older brother figures. Meanwhile, in Revolutionary Girl Utena, Utena is the one to talk some sense into Anthe about leaving the abusive relationship she's in. It's only after Utena's self-sacrifice that Anthe is able to leave her position as the Rose Bride behind. And with that, I'd like to make this analogy. Season 1 of the Wonder Egg Priority was a Gunslinger Girl abusive relationship dynamic. Ai goes back to work at the company that took her friend's life and caused her physical and emotional harm. My version of Season 2 of the Wonder Egg Priority would be a revolutionary Girl Utena break free from abuse dynamic, where Neiru's self-sacrifice leads Ai to gain autonomy and destroy the Wonder Egg Priority in full. And to reference Madoka Magica as a guideline here, this shift should start in the girls' platonic relationships to each other being taken more seriously. Not just karaoke and bowling and bonding through abuse, but genuine connection that instills the passion to fight back in each other. By utilizing Neiru's death and the properties of the Wonder Egg Project itself, we can give the characters time to build a case against the Accas and the WEP organizations themselves. So to be clear, the Wonder Egg Priority Project, or the Wonder Egg Project, or the Wonder Egg Priority created by Akka and Uraraka is our antagonist. I would liken it to Arasaka from Cyberpunk 2077. It's a company that says they're providing a good service, but if you saw the stuff that they were pulling to fulfill their promise behind the scenes, you probably wouldn't give them your money if you could help it. The goal here is for the girls to gain agency and to stop the WEP from functioning. Neiru can affect the plot in Season 2, despite being dead, if the Wonder Egg Priority is still doing business as usual. I mean, they've been recruiting Wonder Egg fighters and furthering the research since Himari died. We can assume that that was a while ago by how many of those eggs they're manufacturing and how big the company has grown. There are now teams of head scientists and magazines commemorating their genetically modified test tube people for their intelligence. Why would they stop now? In order to make the relationship between the girls and the Accas make sense, we need to make sense of the Accas' feelings towards the girls. And to do this, the Accas need to be separated by alignment. Just throwing something out there. What if we make the evil, immoral scientist a little more evil? As gross of a concept as it is, we're gonna make Akka super predatory. Let's say Ai returning to the Wonder Egg Company at the end of the series gets them the closest they've ever been to bringing Himari back, which is all that the Accas care about. Uraraka, who prioritizes the girl's safety over the research, asks Akka what he plans on doing once Himari is resurrected. Akka says, well, I'd finally be a dad again, I'd grow to see her become a young woman, maybe I'll even see her bear a child, it would be an honor. And then he'd say something weird and off-putting like, but it's not fair how much of our lives we sacrifice for this deadly cause, is it? I wonder if there's a way for our genetic legacy to continue on. Maybe we can be reborn. I mean, if we can bring the dead back to life, our own genetic material may be worth saving too. And Uraraka goes,
cool. Can you give me a sec?
Alan, we are so f***ed.
Why?
I built this office 30 years ago without any permission from the city and used cheap laborers from the Enchanted Forest to do it. This building is a f***ing mess. It violates every code in the books. You really thought it was legal to build a giant yellow smiley face between two buildings?
Finally drawing the line at the prospect of immortality and the underlying message of using Himari as an incubator, Uraraka decides to align himself with the girls rather than the corporation. This rewrite would follow the predator focus of the anime and give us a clearer understanding of not only the Akka's goals, but Frill's too. Her romantic attraction to the Akkas and yandere-aligned actions toward Himari are validated once we learn that Akka is romantically invested in his daughter. Plus, Neiru's death at the end of Season 1 sets us up for a good redemption arc. Speaking of, although you might think that it would take the entire season, I'd like to suggest that Ai hatches Neiru on her first try in the second season. The scientists are caught off guard and try their best to control what Neiru says, but an unforeseen consequence of being genetically modified by the company is that she's harder to control in the egg world. This could do two things. Number one, emphasize that the natural order of the WEP system is failing and set up a takedown arc, and number two, give Neiru some agency and autonomy. Neiru knows that these guys have ulterior motives. She was made to do their research in their company, and as the poster child, their most prized possession, she had no other option than to oblige under the guise of making really smart AI to sell to the public. But after Ai tells her that the company created duplicates of her and are using them to cover up her disappearance, she decides to spend her final moments moments with Ai, planning on how to avenge herself and her friends. Her connection with Ai is her only chance at making real change. Neiru wants to put an end to this and tasks Ai to regroup with Momo and Rika and ask for their help to expose the company. That's what season 2 is all about. Ai helps Rika and Momo understand how the WEP manipulated, used, and abused them. They all understand that their grief was taken advantage of and made them turn against each other. Finally coming to terms with the weight of their situation, they decide to work together to bring an end to the WEP's recruitment of child soldiers. Ai acts as the double agent whose loyalty lies with the deceased. Ai, who is now further in the know thanks to Uraraka's allegiance to her, plots a way to lure Frill out. Being an empathetic person, she'd want to know Frill's reasoning for all of this violence. That way, we can get a villain monologue from Frill that would fill in plot holes of season 1. By the end of the season, the girls have learned their common enemy wasn't Neiru or each other, but the company that created her and manipulated all of them. Ai's sleep is interrupted by a knock at the door after Neiru has finished explaining the plan. Neiru is never seen again, but she literally haunts the narrative in season 2 by initiating the takedown of the WEP. Death is final. She can get one more episode, but that's it. A test tube baby, created by the WEP specifically to do their research for them, takes her own life and takes down their company from the afterlife using the bonds that she created by their other child laborers. It becomes a story about redemption rather than a spectacle about trauma. Her death with a season 2 means something. Now, what the girls and the audience don't anticipate is that Uraraka is ready to help them. The Accas' master plan is to enter a parallel universe where Himari is alive and give their alternate selves the proper AI to save her before she dies, and stop them from making the mistake of creating Frill, or rather, that's Accas' plan. Uraraka is kind of sick of this cycle and the harm they've caused. Within the first episode, they start to see his willpower break. As Accas spirals further and further into bringing Himari back to life, Uraraka starts to ruminate on the death that they've caused. When he catches wind that Ai and the girls might be trying to take down their company, he covers for them. Guilt and shame are the true motivators for change, and Uraraka feels it to a degree that the absolute psychopath Akka can't. The girls, the power of friendship, and the power of internet cancel culture end the Wonder Egg project, turning the story from one about grief and disappointment to a story about the power of victims coming together and fighting back. I think this rewrite works because it works as actual retribution for Neiru and the girls. Hopefully you like the solutions that I came up with, but there's one last thing I want to touch on. I spent a good part of part 1 going through Ai's character arc as a protagonist because I think her story is an important perspective to be considered in the show's writing, especially when dissecting Neiru's story. I, to be quite honest, didn't know what to do. Her friend wants her to record her bullies, but she's scared, so she hides. She sees her and their teacher hugging and feels weird about it, but doesn't know what to do. She stops talking to her, and then she winds up dead right in front of her. She didn't know what to do, and she was punished for it by someone she thought was her friend. And just as a side note, I think the way she reacted to these scenarios is valid. She's a teenager, she's obviously quite shy, she wants to be helpful, but she just doesn't know how. And her teacher should have communicated with her like an adult about the situation instead of letting her cry in her room and hitting on her mom. She's never given the opportunity to grieve this trauma, except for one scene at the beginning where she's breaking down, remembering the sight of it, and then she's never shown to internalize her grief. At the end, after she learns that Neiru is gone, the undertone there being that she understands that she died because she goes to purchase Wonder Eggs to try to find her again, she's all smiles. Peace signs at the camera and everything. Roll credits, a slap in the face to the viewer. I feel like it should be a goal of the Wonder Egg priority to make it clear that the moral of the story is that you can't save everyone. More than one throwaway line from the Accas at the end of Ai's first fight. Give us an actual conversation between Ai and her mom, where Ai says that she wants to help but feels like she can't, and her mom reassures her saying you don't have to. You're not out of options, but you don't have to. It's not your job to. It's not your fault if it doesn't work out. If you're suffering in the process of trying to save this one person, you have to consider saving yourself first. And sure, maybe the outcome would be the same. Maybe at the end of the first season, Neiru would still take her own life. But at the very least, we would get a little bit of character growth from Ai. The girl who has been spending the entire series saving other girls' lives ends the series making a conscious decision to save herself, rather than making another selfish decision to ignore her friend's cries. It would be a decisive end to the girls' friend group, as they would all choose themselves over their friendship, but it would keep the core message of it intact. Because it's true, not everyone's happiness is your responsibility. But if you care about them, You should try. Sometimes when you do try, though, it doesn't work. I've been on both sides of this equation, so let me cook real quick. I had a friend who saved my life when I attempted to self-sabotage, who later on self-sabotaged themselves despite me and our mutual friend working so hard to try to keep them alive. We were literally taking shifts. Like, they would be on the phone with them in the morning before they go to work, and I would be on the phone with them at night after I got home from work. But my biggest regret is lashing out on someone who gave up on him. I was so angry, and I regret yelling at them about it because the next week he was gone. It didn't matter. And one morning, our friend came and woke me up and told me that he was gone. I called his teacher, and his teacher told me everything that she possibly could have, down to the gory details. I think about his family a lot, and the guilt that I felt from not being able to save the person who somewhat saved me was some of the worst pain that I've ever felt in my life. They were so close to graduating. If they had waited a little bit longer, they would have found a love that lasted because they were so easy to love. And even though they were only in my life for a short period of time, they had such a profound impact on my life. Part of the reason that I still make YouTube videos to this day is because he told me I would be dishonoring him if I stopped. They are part of the reason why I take social justice so seriously now. They helped me through a bad breakup, bad roommates. When I was going through psychosis, actual psychosis, they were calling me to remind me of the time, my homework, to eat, if I had slept. And it still shocks me to believe how insignificant they thought they were to me. That they thought they could just like leave and, I wouldn't bat an eye. But 2 years later, here I am, still crying about it on some days. I say this to tell you that people care about you more than you think. And if you wait, you'll die naturally. And if you wait, really good things might happen. And if you try to save someone and they still self-sabotaged, it's not your fault. Some people might say that no one is coming to save you. I disagree. There are people who want to help you, people that you'd never even consider, but you have to give them the opening to help you. That's how you save yourself and let other people save you. If you tried your best and your friend still self-sabotaged, it is not your fault. If you were a good friend to them while you could be and they still left, it is not your fault. If you survived your attempt to self-sabotage and are starting over after losing your mind and losing your friends, and things still don't make sense, you should be proud of yourself for staying alive despite the isolation. Take this as a sign that you're headed in the right direction. Sometimes just staying alive is the hardest thing you can do. So good job, and it's not your fault. I'm proud of you. It's not easy, but the more you do it, the easier it gets. My favorite thing about the Wonder Egg Priority is how much emphasis they have on doing the little things to make life worth living. The opening is full of scenes just like that, of I spending time alone, feeding fish, taking pictures of nature on her walk, and then returning home. It doesn't fix everything, but sometimes that's all you need. And hey, it helped me, so start somewhere. One day at a time. I'm rooting for you.